talking about leveraging AI to transform content management. Here's our agenda for the day. First, I'll cover a very brief overview of the AI space and what we need to know as users of AI to be successful with it. After that, I want to cover some of the challenging areas of content management. These are all areas that are ripe for AI-based transformation. After that, we'll look at a couple of considerations that we need to keep in mind when we're leveraging AI. And then we'll take a look at a few examples of leveraging AI in Crafter CMS based on OpenAI and AWS-based AI and machine learning services. After that, at the end, we'll take a few questions, so please remember to ask your questions in the Q&A area. And we're going to start here with a brief overview of the AI landscape. It seems like every product we look at today and nearly every headline this year has something to do with AI, as if 2023 is the year of AI, which is an interesting phenomenon because the root of AI goes all the way back to 1950 when Alan Turing first proposed the idea of the Turing test. Now, the Turing test is a really simple idea that we can test a computer, or what we would now call an AI, to see if it will respond to an inquiry in the same fashion as a human, in a way that it's indistinguishable from a human. Now, in 1955, the term artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy, and by the mid-1960s, there were some primitive chatbot-style proto-AIs. Between 1960 and the late 1990s, there was a real lull in AI-based activity. People usually refer to this as the AI winter. And this winter really was largely due to a lack of funding and infrastructure for AI research, and so on. The timing just wasn't right for massive investment in this area. However, the 2000s brought on a major resurgence in AI research, services, and products. Since the early 2000s, AI has been steadily growing in terms of its capabilities, public awareness, and availability as an embedded element of many products and services. And as I've mentioned, I think we can all agree that it really has caught the public zeitgeist this year. So, was there some major advancement in AI processing and research that recently occurred? Well, yes and no. That is to say, recent advances in fundamental research certainly have been significant, but there's more to it than that. It's really that many things finally came together in a way that causes what we would call network effects. In addition to AI-related techniques and algorithms, we've seen major advances in the types of computer infrastructure and how we can deploy that infrastructure that have helped AI. For example, GPUs and TPUs, along with other types of chips, which have become widely available. And these types of chips really optimize for the type of distributed processing and scale required for machine learning, natural language processing, and other kinds of AI workloads. And crucial to practical application, these architectures are easily deployed at scale in a cost-effective manner in the cloud. Another important factor that has led to a sudden surge in AI is access to very large data sets. We can now collect, transfer, and process massive amounts of data. And cloud computing and big data initiatives have been major enablers of this. Also, through social media and a growing ecosystem of IoT capabilities, we can now easily generate and interact with these large data sets. Data is a key element of the equation. Now, we've had some of these in some stage of development or use for a long time. AI has been doing very tangible work in this field for more than a decade. And yes, the public at large has to some degree become acquainted with AI-based applications as part of their day-to-day activities. I think what's really caught the public attention here is a few use cases that were given really easy to use interfaces for otherwise complicated tasks And all of that was done so in a very public context. For example, self-parking and self-driving cars have become more commonplace in the marketplace and are really awe-inspiring to folks because of the challenging and high-stakes environment in which they operate in. And on the opposite side of the coin in terms of high stakes is something like AI-generated profile pictures on social media. Now, this is a really fun activity, and you can see how it could go viral, and that's a big piece of it, that it's gone viral, and again, because of social media, but it's the ease of use in terms of telling the AI what you want, being able to iterate on those results and get back a response and post it that has caused a stir and really shown how we can, in a very large scale way, get a lot of people interacting with AI. So it's really the nexus of the required capabilities and platforms along with the data that's existed for some time, combined with a really well-functioning AI that has an easy-to-use interface in a social context that has captured the public's attention. And we can see just how important all of these factors are and how the whole is so much greater than the sum of the parts. Now, there are two types of AI and AI objectives: narrow AI and general AI. Narrow AI seeks to solve a single problem or class of problems or tasks. The AI is goal-oriented and works within a specific context on specific tasks. A really good example is one that we just talked about, which is autonomous driving. Inside of the umbrella of autonomous driving, there are several AI examples, from basic computer vision to classification and decision-making tasks. Another great example is leveraging AI to generate written text like blogs, social posts, and so on. You can also use narrow AI to analyze written content, to understand what the AI thinks the content is written for in terms of audience, tone, and purpose. And this can help you make sure that the content that you're writing for a specific audience or target has those attributes. And our final example here is image generation and manipulation, which is very similar to copy generation, but in a visual medium. So narrow AI seeks to meet specific goals. General AI, by contrast, seeks to achieve and perhaps even surpass, at some point, human cognition. I think a really great way to think about these two sort of ends of the spectrum are something like AlphaGo versus the HAL 9000. So what we mean by that is that AlphaGo was specifically targeted at learning to play Go, which is a much more sophisticated and difficult game than chess. And that AI was able to learn how to play that game well enough to beat the world's top players. Whereas the HAL 9000 really seemed to have a very general thought process, in addition to task-oriented processing capabilities, and even exhibited what we would call emotions and motives associated with its cognition. All of this to say that while there is a lot of interest from the public in terms of solving that general AI space and where things really tend to go at their extreme, for our purposes, narrow AI is more than sufficient to completely transform the digital experience space and the digital experience management problems associated with it. All of the examples that we'll look at today are narrow AI examples. And while they're much more sophisticated and generalized than AlphaGo, they are narrow AI nonetheless. Now, if you are new to the space, you are no doubt swimming in an ocean of AI-related jargon with phrases like NLP or natural language processing, large language models, machine learning, and so on. And while these terms are important in terms of pure AI mechanics, for our purposes today, it's enough to know that all of these terms fall squarely under the umbrella of AI and are specific mechanics required to support AI. As a digital experience practitioner, we will no doubt get closer to the technology associated to some of these terms, but we will not be required to have a deep understanding of them in order to make AI useful for our purposes. So here's what we need to know as a layperson. The first is that if ChatGPT has taught the public anything, one of its main lessons is that very sophisticated and complex things can be accomplished via AI with no understanding of AI at all. It's often possible to think of AI as a black box in which we are simply able to make an inquiry as input, allow the AI to do its work, and get back some output, and then iterate on that process. Again, here's an example where AI struck gold by simply providing a chat-based interface that was completely natural to almost everyone and naturally supported iteration on a task in the form of conversation. The underlying key to AI is the model that it works on, along with the data and training processes and feedback loop that was used to build and adjust the model. The how the data is prepared and used to train the model is not important at this time. What is important is that we can see here exactly what separates AI from traditional code, and that is that it learns and adjusts. With traditional code, the logic is predefined, whereas AI's cognition is trained and can be refined through iteration on that training and use. And now that we've covered some basics in AI, let's talk about how we can leverage it in the CMS space. And to best understand the CMS space, I like to break it down into two distinct domains: authoring and delivery. Authoring is where we create and manage digital experiences. Delivery is where we deliver our digital experiences and enable our users to interact with those experiences. Now, delivery is the end user experience, and it's a good place to look at present day challenges that are a good opportunity for AI to improve. So let's look at some of those. Here's an obvious one: understanding who our users really are and what their long-term and immediate goals are. Marketers and product owners are always looking to answer this specific question. Without this information, they're forced to speak and interact with users in a general fashion. But with this information, they can really tailor the response. Now, we can certainly ask users what they want directly. And on the surface, this seems like an easy answer, but it's typically more complicated than it sounds. Additionally, both end users and marketers want a frictionless way to get these questions answered that understand the user in a way that wows them without crossing lines that would otherwise creep them out. So AI can play a major role here because learning is what AI is all about. Another opportunity here is to make our experiences easy and natural to use with AI-backed chatbots and assistant skills. One of the best ways to make an experience easier is to make it tailored to the specific user and make it task-oriented to what they're trying to achieve. And this can be done by personalizing the content and experience. And I'm not talking about doing so in a sort of big buckets fashion where we segment users. We're talking about doing this based on individuals, which can be a major problem in terms of data complexity and volume. So AI offers one of the really scalable approaches for solving this problem. And of course, there's the classic example of making personalized recommendations. Now, this is in many ways a specialization of our previous example, but brings together all of the aspects of experience, customer data, and behavior analysis. Now, on the authoring side, AI presents the opportunity to improve our efficiency, multiply our output, and magnify our creativity. So let's look at a few authoring challenges and how AI can help resolve them. Let's start with ideation. Coming up with ideas for blogs and new images and white papers and ebooks and webinars and campaigns and other types of content can be really hard sometimes. Sometimes we need a little help. And today, AIs like ChatGPT are a great tool for this kind of activity. And they can do much more than just come up with ideas. With our guidance, today AIs can help write content and create media assets for us. And these two ideas alone, ideation and content and media generation and manipulation, can greatly improve our throughput as content authors. And along with that, whether an AI or a human creates content, it's important to make sure that that content is on target. Who is the audience? What is the tone of the content? How complex is the content? Is the content SEO optimized? These are questions that we ask all the time. Now, these are the type of questions that would take humans with a lot of expertise a ton of time to answer per asset, but AI can handle them in seconds. Another challenge in content management is getting the most out of our content, making it findable, searchable, leverageable, and so on by our software systems. This requires metadata. We can use an image here as our example. Typically, authors have a file name and a file size associated with the image at their disposal. And if they're lucky, those images are also stored in a folder structure that adds some organization and value and information to that image. But typically, finding the right image can be very difficult because of this lack of information. By contrast, knowing exactly what's in the image, what the color palette is, and what other images are similar to that image is much more powerful. The way to get this information and make it leverageable is to extract these details from the image and store it in the metadata by looking at the image itself. Doing this by hand is not scalable, but AI-based image processing and object recognition makes this content enrichment task much more simple and scalable. And this kind of process can apply not only to images, but also to video, audio, rich documents, and really any kind of content. Speaking of content, today our audiences are global. So translating and localizing content is necessary for many of us. And for those of us who live in this space, we know that even with the great technical systems and support that we have today, at scale across many languages and many regions, this is creating a huge amount of additional administrative work and maintenance work associated with the content management. Here again, AI can assist us, building on top of traditional translation memories and machine translations with more general, cost-effective AI-based solutions. Our next example is personalization. Now, we've already talked about personalization on the delivery side and how AI can help us match our experience and content to our users and their immediate long-term wants and needs. But what about the authoring side? Personalization is a concept that's been around for 20 years. But frankly, most organizations that have tried it have only had limited success with it. Everyone wants to go big with this idea, but they quickly find out that personalized content, like translated and localized content, has a massive multiplication effect on the amount of content required and the effort needed to maintain it. It's just not scalable. Here, AI presents a great answer. Given strong, generalized content and a good idea of who the audience is, AI can rewrite the content for that given audience, making the content multiplication a non-issue. Further, it's possible to employ AI and learning from the effectiveness of that content in the delivery context to regenerate the content on an ongoing basis to be much more effective. So this is not only scalable, it's also super powerful. Another common issue in content management is reusing content. A blog post may be good for some users, but for other users, they would prefer that same content in the form of an infographic, a video, an audio, or some other format, which is great. But converting from one type of content to another is time-consuming and labor-intensive. So it's something that's not easily done or can be very expensive to get done. So here again, we see a place where AI can be used to assist us in that activity, basically do the work for us and help us to really get a lot of value out of that content and get it out onto many mediums and forms without a lot of effort and expense. And what about our workflows and pure content management activities? Well, with AI's ability to learn, we may be able to get help in making hard decisions about content scheduling, content retention, and how and when we should roll over our content. We may also be able to use AI to understand how we're working and where we could be working more efficiently to improve our workflows. So there's a lot of areas here where AI may be able to step in and help us identify patterns, and then based on those patterns make recommendations or even take actions for us based on those findings. And our last challenge on the authoring side here is development. Today's AI has a wide range of development capabilities. It can act as an assistant to developers and make them more efficient by making suggestions, performing debugging and refactoring activities, and it can even rewrite whole units of code itself, which is really powerful stuff. So, without getting too deep into this topic, which is a whole sort of world of itself, like many of the other topics that we've just talked about, it's safe to say that content management platforms are absolutely going to be looking to automate or enhance aspects of activities like content modeling, configuration, and to drive the composition and development and integration efforts around new experiences within their platform based on AI. Okay, now we've looked at what AI can do for us and where we can really apply it to transform our space. Now let's look at some things that we need to watch out for when we're leveraging AI in the space. And our first consideration is that we want to make sure that any content that we generate with AI is really on target. We've all seen or read content that is obviously AI generated. It felt generic and it was presented in a robotic way. And that triggers an emotional response from us, a negative emotional response, because it lacks authenticity and, in a lot of ways, it often lacks fit. Another challenge with AI generated content can be accuracy. So much like our own experience, where when we have bad information, we can give bad answers, AI also has this problem where when its model and view of the world or that space is not accurate, it's not going to give accurate responses. So we really want to make sure that the model is correct and that the training is guiding the model in a more correct fashion over time. And also that the model has enough information to provide specialized answers for our specific domain. And the solution to this problem is to have a good source of data and good training combined with monitoring the output to make sure that things fit and that the feedback is provided to the AI for further training. Another consideration is SEO. It doesn't help us to have vastly improved our content output capabilities if Google is going to ignore or even penalize all of that content. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So where does Google stand on AI generated content? Well, as of the time of this webinar, Google will treat our AI generated content like any other content. As long as the content is useful and not plagiarized, it's considered to be valid content. So we're free to use AI-based tools to help us generate content. The key is for us to remember to monitor our content and SEO for issues and then to adjust our models and input accordingly if we're not ranking appropriately. And the last consideration that I think is worth sharing is the concern of plagiarism, copyright, and public policy. AI creates new content based on existing content. It doesn't plagiarize in a kind of direct copy-paste sense, but like any human might, it may summarize or synthesize content in a fashion that is too close to source material and doesn't give credit where credit's due. The solution here is awareness and analysis. First, start by using a good AI-based solution that has great training and monitor its outputs for issues. And then regenerate content when it's questionable. And that leads to our last part of this consideration, which is public policy. Now, AI for content generation is a relatively new and fast-moving topic. And public policy is most often slow-moving and, as a result, fairly behind from both a technical capabilities perspective and also a sort of adoption perspective. I think it's prudent to say that we can expect to see some updates in laws and regulation in the next few years as more and more people and organizations leverage AI to create their content and experiences. Overall, I think as long as AI continues to advance towards its goal, which is to be more and more human-like in its thinking and processing, these tweaks will be relatively minor because it's so similar to what we as humans do. But an important point, nevertheless, something that we need to think about and consider as we move forward. So we've covered a lot of ground in terms of our information at a very high level. We've looked at what AI is and where it's come from, how it can be useful to transform our jobs as content authors and our experiences as end users, and we've talked about some considerations. Now what I'd like to do is jump into a demonstration of a few authoring use cases based on AI inside Crafter CMS. So our first use case is going to be generative AI, which is a way that we can use AI to help our content authors generate content, whether that's a headline, body copy, images, rich media like videos, or other more advanced use cases. And today we're going to focus on two use cases as examples, the first being simple image and text generation, and the second being maybe a rich media type asset like a video and generating that with AI. So let's get started with that first use case, which is generating copy and images. To do that, I'm going to go up here and click on this generate content button, which is going to highlight an integration that we have with OpenAI and ChatGPT. So let's click on that, and you can see there's a simple dialog here where I can create text or images, and then I'm going to have input some text here to interact with the AI. And let's just start with some basic query for titles. So I've got some queries here like write 5 headlines about becoming an advanced motorcycle rider. Let's grab that and paste that in here, and we'll click generate. Okay, now we've got 5 titles here, and just looking over them, we can see that this number 2 here, take your motorcycle riding to the next level with advanced techniques. I like that one, so I'm going to go ahead and click copy, and you can see that puts it on my clipboard. I'm going to close this dialog. I'm going to go here. This is what I want to edit, so I'm going to double click on it, double click that content, and Control V, just paste that. And here you can see there's my title. I think it looks good. Click out, and we're done. All right, so that's generating copy, and we can of course do that for titles and headlines and whatever else we'd like. We can also generate images. So here in the same dialog, we could choose to generate an image, and let's grab another query. How about a photorealistic photo of a fast motorcycle racer turning to the left on a racetrack? Let's put that in and generate that image. There we go. We can see that image, and we can continue to refine that image, explaining exactly the types of details we want. Is there sun in the background? Is it raining? Are there other riders on the track? The more details that we give the AI, the more specific that image is going to be. Okay, so that's generating simple content. You can see how that might help get a specific image or get some copy in place quickly. Another use case is taking existing content like a blog and generating another type of content like a video with that content. So repurposing that blog article content. So let's look at that use case. I've got another tool here called text to video. Let's click on that. Now at the top of this screen here, we see that we've got sort of a topic or a main idea. I'm going to put motorcycle track days. And to start, I want to generate this from text. I could also generate it from a web URL, which of course just goes out and fetches that URL, or another option, maybe creating it from a content item inside of Crafter CMS. Okay, now I'm going to put my copy. So let's again go grab some copy here. And you can see I've just put these as simple sentences. And we'll paste that in here. And let's just fix that one spelling mistake there. Okay, great. Now what this is going to do is it's going to break each sentence out into a slide. And we'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a second. I'm also going to provide some basic instructions here. I'd like these to be cartoon style images. It should be sunny and people are having fun. Okay, let's go ahead and generate this. Okay, we've generated the sentences and the slides. Now we're generating images for those slides. All right, and let's scroll down and see what's been generated. Okay, and just to highlight a little bit more how this works, you can see that we've taken each sentence. This will be spoken by our AI in the video, and then we've asked the AI to help us understand, what is this sentence about? What's the crux of this sentence? And you can see here that this particular sentence it thinks is about motorcycle racing. The next one is it's a lot of fun, which it interprets as enjoyable. The next one is you can use your bike to the full potential. It's about maximizing the potential. I can also help the AI generate a better image. Let's say I don't like the image because it didn't come up with a good idea for what the sentence was about. So here it says it's much more safe. You don't have to worry about cops or oncoming traffic and other hazards. Well, let's just change this particular image here because we've already covered the safety topic. Let's cover the idea here of no cops. How about no traffic violations? So here we can see this picture is a little bit better. Doesn't quite capture the idea of police, but I think we're good with it. We can also go up to the top and sort of change the overall feel. Maybe we really don't like the cartoon style, so we can change this to be hyper realistic. Okay, and there's all kinds of sort of keywords. Now I'm going to go ahead and regenerate the entire slideshow, but there are all kinds of keywords that you can provide at the high level to tell the AI what kind of video presentation you want. Okay, now when we look at the images, we can see that there's a completely different look and feel to this slideshow. Now let's say that I'm happy with this, so I'm going to go ahead and construct the video. And what we're going to do now is we're going to ask the AI to speak the words of the slide and generate an audio, to understand the length of that audio and encode the images for the length of each segment, and then combine all of that into a video. So of course, encoding that and the length that it takes to encode that depends on the amount of content that you have here in the video. Some other things that you might have noticed is that you can add and remove slides, you can edit the copy of the spoken words, and the hints that go to the AI to help generate images. All right, it's done with the video construction, so I'm going to go ahead and download the video. Okay, here it is. Let's click on it.
Have you ever considered riding your motorcycle on a race track? It's a lot of fun. You can't use your bike to its full potential on the street. If you really want to go fast, then the track is the place to do it. It's much more safe. You don't have to worry about cops, oncoming traffic or other hazards. You will learn how to properly apply your brakes and throttle to unlock a much faster pace. And you will make a lot of new friends.
Okay, we don't necessarily need to finish this, but you can see just what the potential is here, right? We've pasted in a little bit of copy, we've clicked a few buttons, and we have a video out the other side of this tool. Now, there's so much more that you could really do here in terms of this integration. Of course, we can choose different types of voices, give all kinds of additional hints on how to inflect that audio, maybe add a music track and so on. But this just highlights how powerful this tool is, how much more efficient it can make us, and the kinds of neat things that we can do to improve our digital experiences. Okay, now let's move on to another kind of example, which is the example of AI-backed metadata extraction from rich content. And for this example, we're going to do recognition on images to help sort and classify a sports-related photo. And I'm going to give you more detail on this and really sort of set up the use case. So let's jump into that use case and let me set up the background for you. So our example is going to be based on sports player detection. We're going to be looking at numbers on jerseys, numbers on vehicles. And this is applicable to sports, but it's also applicable, as the last picture here shows, to things outside of the sports domain. And there are real challenges with these kinds of use cases. So let's look at some of those. The first is that you've got a very fast-paced environment with moving objects. You also have multiple targets of text, so you might be interested in a single player, but you've got lots of players on the field. You've also got a challenge with inconsistent fonts and character sets, colors of the backgrounds of jerseys or paint jobs. There are all kinds of sharp angles. You can't detect how a player is going to present themselves, as you're going to see in our specific use case. You've got curved surfaces on bodywork of vehicles. You've got folded clothing. You've also got extraneous text that's out there, advertising, artwork, and other things that can give you false positives. So a lot of challenges here. Now let's take a look at the specific example, which is identifying and categorizing riders in a motorcycle track day or race. So a very fast environment with a lot of sharp angles, multiple targets, almost all of the things that we've talked about here as challenges. And so you can see, just tell you a little bit about the day here, all these bikes are teched in and checked out. After that, riders are gathered together for a safety briefing, because safety first, and then it's time to suit up and race. So we'll get some bikes out on the track. And here's where the recognition can help us out, because while all that action is taking place, there are folks out around the track taking pictures with these Hubble telescope-like cameras. Anyone that does this kind of job in any sport, in any kind of similar context, is a real hero. They battle the elements and nature to capture some really amazing photos and capture that special moment for players and riders and so on. Now, they're taking thousands of photos, sometimes between 3,000 and 6,000 photos a day, and that's hard work. But the real hard work is at the end of the day when they've got to categorize those photos per rider, per player, and then upload them to be downloaded or purchased off of sites like SmugMug or others. And that's where Crafter and AWS Recognition can make a huge difference in their workflow, allowing them to focus on what they do best, which is capturing these special moments, and let the CMS and technology do this grunt work for them. Now with some context, we can jump into a demonstration. So I'm going to go back to Studio and click on our image recognition example, which is going to take me to this photography site. In the sidebar, you'll see my Classify and Sort Images plugin. This is built exactly the same way as other plugins in the sidebar, for example, the Explorer here. So let's navigate back and use the plugin. Now clicking on it opens up an experience for the authors that is specific to classifying and sorting images. You can see at the top I can choose the mode of detection that I want to use, whether that's text or labels or faces or celebrities. We're going to choose text, and then we're going to specify the folder where we want to put the images. So let's go ahead and do that, and that's going to be T1. Next, we want to upload and process our photos with recognition. So I'm going to click on Upload, and this is going to open a dialog box from our SDK that allows us to bulk upload assets to S3 and kick off the processing. So I'm going to go ahead and select the images that I want. Let's take a look at the images before we process them. So the first image we see 22, 72, and 70 that are pretty clear. 52 and 33 that look pretty clear to me. 142 but hard to read. Here we see 311 in a blur, and then here you can see 617 and 917, 643, and a bunch of bikes that are the same here, which we should expect to see grouped, and another one, and then a jersey here with 835. So we'll see if we can read that as well. Okay, Now we've had a chance to see the images for ourselves. Let's go ahead and upload them. So here I'm just going to grab them, drag them, and drop them. And this is going to upload them to S3 automatically, kick off some thumbnailing and some processing. So let's go ahead and let this upload happen. And these are pretty high resolution images. They take a moment to upload as well as process. So we're going to let that do its work. And when we're done, clear the completed just to be sure. So let's go ahead and do that. And we can see everything was uploaded. So now let's close this. And you can see that the images have been processed. We're going to come back to this, but I want to show you what's happened in the background. So let's close this tool for a moment. And let's jump over to the Explorer and go down to Static Assets. And here you'll see in Static Assets, under Images, you can see these images here now, and we can preview them here. Behind the scenes, Crafter is storing these high-resolution assets in S3, so let's take a look at that. Here you can see my Crafter Recognition Images S3 bucket. I'm going to go ahead and click on Sandbox so you can see how our blob store maps to the folder structure in Crafter, and then Static Assets. And then here you can see Images. Just click on that. And then T1. And you can see the images here as well. Okay, now we can jump back to the tool. Loading the tool back up, we can see what recognition has done. So looking at the first image, it's put it in a gallery of 22, and below the image we can see that there were multiple tags in the image. You can see here 22 and 70. So I think we saw 3 images here. Let's look at it, or 3 tags, and you can see 72 did not get detected. But it might have been due to glare. Here's another one with only a single tag, so we know there was 2 in here, 52 and 33, so it might be something about the angle there or something about the font that tripped the recognition there. So another one that was a good hit and then one that wasn't. And scrolling down, there's 70, so it created a gallery for that bike as well, so that's good. 2 galleries, 1 image. Here we see 162, and we know that this is a 142. So that's a misrecognition, and it's really due to the font. 311, and then you can see the last image there. The bike in the back is too blurry for recognition. Here, 617, and we can see there's 2 bikes detected here, 617 and 917. So looking at that, perfect match. So then we should see another gallery as well for 917. 643 here detected on the front plate. Great. On the front plate as well. And then here I think you've gotten it from the side there. So perfect detection on that bike. Now 835, this is actually off of a jersey, so this is kind of an interesting use case because if you look at this text here, it's wrapped around his shoulder, and we're still able to make a positive identification there. So pretty powerful stuff there. And also you can see the confidences. 917, that's the other bike in this image, so you can see 2 galleries, 1 photo auto-generated here, so 917, another perfect match. And then below that, there's no unknown bikes that we weren't able to detect. So you can see the recognition is really strong, but it's not perfect. So we're going to have to make some corrections, and we want the tool to help us with that. So this image has a 33 in it. So let's copy that to another gallery. And then here, if we scroll up, we can see now we have a new gallery. And also this particular image has no confidences because it was manually entered. Let's go down and find another correction we can make. Here we know 162 was actually 142, and that's because that font is so hard to read, even as a human. Let's go ahead and change this. So what we're going to do is a move operation, essentially move this entire gallery from one name to another. So we'll make 142 and then move it, and you can see the update here. You can also see that the identification as 162 is kept the same. Okay, now let's pretend that we want to remove a photo from a gallery. Maybe we just don't think a photo is of a good quality. So we can highlight that and say delete. And that will mark that image as deleted from the gallery. When we do the export or publish to something like SmugMug, it won't be exported. We could also remove an entire gallery by highlighting the gallery and saying remove. So you can see that the authoring tools are really specific to the job of the person managing these assets and this kind of digital experience, because they have everything they need to do the sort, to do the analysis, and then ultimately to publish these either to the site or some other destination. Okay, this concludes the presentation portion of our event today. I really want to thank everybody for coming out and spending time with us to learn more about Crafter CMS, artificial intelligence, and how artificial intelligence can completely transform the content management space, and giving us a chance to show some of that in the context of Crafter CMS. So if you found any of this interesting, please reach out to us at craftercms.com, or you can reach me directly at russ.danner@craftercms.com. Thanks, and have a great day.